This is IBM Museum, another 25SX video that I am going to do after working with the unit, having it open, adding the memory module. I thought, now that I have it operational, let's run through the IBM Personal System 2 System Information Tool on this system as well, just because it will give some detail that may be different. And so I've already copied over the system information tool to the hard drive, and let's go ahead and run it. And I probably need to see if I can get, I do have a mouse driver set up on this system as well, although I can probably just use the cursor keys to go through that. You guys remember seeing the mouse cursor being that block mouse cursor that it has in SIT. And for this being a non-microchannel system, I do kind of expect that it doesn't give information on the microchannel aspects, but we can certainly look through everything else. Okay, the volume label, the hard drive being IBM DOS 5. Okay. And the hard drive by device number. Okay, drive letter C, and it's a 40 megabyte IDE drive. One of the things I didn't talk about with the system open as well, I have another 25SX that I'm doing some modifying, and it actually has a ROM BIOS extension on board that makes it so it recognizes a what's called a LBA long block addressing drive. In other words, we can get like a 2 gigabyte drive, or even a compact flash card running from the planar IDE that the MUL25SX has. Okay, and we see that partition table gives a little bit of detail on the hard drive that we have here. And again, we see those unallocated partitions, 0 KB in size. I don't know why that displays them that way. And then I figured out a little bit of why it was saying that on that diskette drive information, as I said, when there's a 2.88 megabyte IBM diskette drive in there, it is set on the 25SX as not installed, although it functions correctly. And that is apparently what we have in this instance. It shows the drive type of 2.88 megabyte. So I'll have to look at the eject key on the 25SX again up close, and I may have actually popped in a 2.88 megabyte diskette drive by happy mistake in this case. And that just shows why I thought it was going to go through and recognize it. It confused me when we went through the star diskette, and it showed that the drive is not installed for the 1.44 megabyte that I thought it was. Okay, memory information, memory hardware, and we can actually see that there's a lot more things here that are presented with the 25SX under the memory. And now we have the full 12 megabyte of RAM, and it even tells what the system supports in this case. 1 megabyte and 2 megabyte modules, 4 megabyte modules, and the speed of those. So very informational for the memory component, and it's treating the I think what it does is it treats that half of that planar memory that's in the one corner as 2 megabyte, and then the other half that's installed over the where that unpopulated SIM slot is the other 2 megabyte, and then it recognizes that 8 megabyte in the SIM slot. Okay. Now I apologize for the mouse cursor being in the way. Some of that detail. Mapping. And interesting that shows the video RAM, of course, mapped to the system. It's just I guess an aperture window of 128 KB, and I don't know what it's viewing as the adapter ROM. I may have to look through that again, whether there's a class extension for the video maybe. Miscellaneous technical information. This will be kind of handy too. AT bus, as I said, the 25SX is not microchannel. All PS2 models below 50 are not microchannel. It's a hard and fast rule. Okay. And we get to see pretty much what we expect from this system. Okay. And I don't know if that's the PC-DOS mouse driver, or I'd have to look at this a little bit more. And we'll get to look at that with that teaser I gave of where I left off after adding memory on this 25SX. That'll be a later video. And it is PC-DOS 5. Model and processor. Recognizes fully the 25386SX as it's defined here. Processor, and then speed. And it is correct in that regard that this is a 16 megahertz CPU that's in this one. It's clocked at 16 megahertz. That's probably a hard-coded value, as we've seen before when I demonstrated the system information tool. I do have a 20 megahertz 25SX that came that way from the factory, and I even have a third 25SX that I went through and modified, changed out the crystal, put a socket in place, and I saw that it had a CPU, 386SX CPU that was capable or even rated at 20 megahertz. I'm getting my Google Assistant talking to me a little bit here. That's not having the internet connection or not happy or something like that. And okay. And as I said, these videos tend to be a little bit warts and all. I'm a little bit unscripted as I go through and have these background things. So I didn't go through and actually take the batteries out of the cordless phone or turn off my cell phone ringer either. But you could run a 386SX 16 megahertz typically can run at 20 megahertz, even though it's can be slightly overclocked. But I went through and I actually modified the planar. I put in a socket and put a crystal in, and for the kind of the later videos, I can show that that planar and show how that crystal is. I do have pictures of all that, and I've got high resolution photos of the 25SX planars as well that are up that I can link in to whichever appropriate videos. And this doesn't have the floating point unit. There's the biostate, and of course it doesn't have a planar ID for this. The thing that we're noticing for the again the model being F8, that's just an IBM nomenclature for anything that is 386SX or above. They didn't really get in there and and distinguish the 46 or Pentium systems as anything different from the 386SX level in that model, that BIOS model identifier. But they did go through quite a few submodels, and that's the interesting thing is being produced later. The 25SX is the submodel of 34 and has the BIOS revision of 11. I don't know of any other BIOS versions that were released for the 25SX. There's an interesting aside that I went through and I saw a reference to a 30SX in an IBM document on the BIOS versions that were out. And I knew that there was not any such thing, any such animal as the 30S model, PS2 model 30SX. There is the model PS2 model 35SX, model 40 SX that also have 386SX CPUs in them. But when I saw the submodel listing in the BIOS revision, I realized it was the model 25SX planar that was in that unit. And I learned of a PS1 Pro model 2123 that was put in what they called a PS2 model 30 case, and it had the same specs as what the 30SX was supposed to be. And what it turns out was that IBM, with the planned release of the model 35SX, being an ISA-based PS2 system, a little bit newer case design, and the model 40SX is the same planar, just in a 5x5 case, 5 adapter slots, 5 drive bays. But those are 20 megahertz 386SXs, and that 30SX would conflict with those models. And so basically IBM just released the unit as a PS1, rebadged it, and that was viewed as a limited release. Those things are really rare, and I know of people that have them, but I've tried to track one down for myself, but not really found one available. But that is the so-called 30SX unit, that it has the model 25SX planar in a unit with a separate display. It's not an all-in-one unit. And as we saw with the prior things, it tells a number of serial ports and parallel ports, but not really any further determination of how those ports are configured or anything like that. This does not have any SCSI, of course, on there. Video information should be interesting. We get system extended VGA, and that there's a color monitor attached. And I saw this with a little bit, this is going to be in a later video as well, talking about the VRAM upgrade of the 25SX, that it just shows the 256 KB of video RAM. And that appears to be a hard-coded value in the system information tool, because on the 25SX, it does have the 512 KB of video RAM, and it is a, and in this case, I have the VESTA driver loaded, so it's able to do the 256 colors rather than the 16 color that they're showing there. So this system information tool is just giving a hard-coded return value, not showing what the system actually has. And I've seen this in also in the other PS2 units that have the same video chipset that upgrade the video RAM, and it doesn't change in this system information tool. So one of the things of my replacement program written in Visual Basic for DOS is going to do is it's going to go through and not have that as a hard-coded value, actually showing it for what it is. But that was going through the system information tool on the Model 25SX. When I saw that and realized that I had the working system, it'd be a real easy video for me to do and to show that before I move on to other videos. I thought I'd go through it. If you like this video, please click on that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. We'll have off-the-wall content about these wide variety of IBM systems. And we may have an impromptu video that just jumps in like this. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.